2 months ago, I decided to commit myself to practice to achieve a childhood dream that I've always had, learning how to wheelie a bicycle. While I was reflecting on the process that it took to get to this point, I got the thought that the steps are very similar to what it takes to achieve financial independence and build wealth, and so I thought I'd share that with you guys. You see, the first step in both of these endeavors is to arm yourself with the right knowledge and the right information. For me, for the first couple days of wheelies, I just went out and tried to do them, and making every single wheelie mistake that you can make, looking down, pulling with my arms. So it wasn't until I educated myself with some videos that I learned the right way, to cover my rear brake, to keep my head up and to lean back, keeping my arms straight and not pulling with my arms but sitting into it, making sure that my gearing wasn't too low or too high and that the balance was really achieved using my knees and my hips. Similarly, for personal finance and building wealth, being educated and having the right knowledge and knowing the right steps is just as important. Starting off by paying off high interest debt, credit cards especially, is the first step in achieving financial freedom. Also, building up a roughly 4 to 6 month emergency fund should be at the top of the list also, so you don't fall back into the trap of using credit cards to cover any emergencies. Once you have those set, if you have a 401k plan with your employer that offers employer matching, make absolutely sure that you contribute at a minimum enough to get that employer match. It's essentially free money. Next, open a Roth IRA, especially if you're young, and contribute as much as you can up to the maximum amount each year. And make sure both your 401k and your IRA money is invested in diversified low-cost funds. Total market low-cost index funds like VTI and VXUS are particularly good. And lastly and most importantly, live within your means and don't try to keep up with all the glitz and glamour that you see on social media.
Don't do it. I bet you he's got more than 100 grand under the hood of that car.
Step 2 is to make sure that you're using the right tools to achieve your financial goals. There's a wide range of products and tools out there. A lot of them are traps for young investors. Like if you're trying to buy options to try to get rich quick, that is the wrong tool if your goal is to build wealth and become financially independent. When I first started practicing wheelies, I was stubborn and wanted to learn on this old hand-me-down bike that didn't have working brakes and had a messed up rear wheel. Although I did make some improvements and I did learn, my progress was hampered by the fact that I couldn't actually learn how to modulate the brakes because the brakes didn't work very well. And so that kept me from progressing as much as I could have. Luckily for me, the rear wheel actually broke after about 2 weeks of practice, forcing me to go get another bike in order to continue. And the difference was absolutely night and day. With a more powerful rear brake and suspension in the front, I could practice for much longer and actually have confidence to sit into it, which helped me really learn where the balance point was and how far it was too far. For personal finance, using the right tools is just as critical, and hopefully you don't have to go broke before you're forced to learn how to use them. Knowing where, how, and when to use each of these tools and how they fit into your overall plan is incredibly important. Things like 401ks, health savings accounts, your traditional versus your Roth IRAs, where that fits in with your plans for a taxable brokerage account, your high yield savings account, hopefully where you're keeping your emergency fund in, and that amount is an appropriate amount, CDs if they're appropriate for you, 529 accounts for yourself or for your children for educational expenses, and where life insurance fits in. With a lot of us being young, term life insurance makes the most sense over anything else. Understanding where each of these tools fits into your overall plan and overall picture is incredibly important, and it's better to do it now than wait until it's too late. The third step is to really commit to the plan, to make a plan and actually commit to it. One of the biggest pitfalls of personal finance is in the beginning people don't see the big changes and it doesn't seem like it's really making a big impact. So they abandon their plans, or worse yet, even raid their retirement accounts, which come with hefty penalties. Now sometimes life emergencies do happen, which is understandable, but if there's any way, try your best to commit to the plan long term. For my wheelie practice, committing to the long term practice every single day was a big part of it, but one thing that really helped me improve extremely quickly was really going all in and really sitting into each of those wheelies, committing my weight into the back of the bike, almost like I was going to fall off the back of it. That type of risk and that type of feeling of committing yourself to the point where you might fall off the back, which I actually fell off a couple times, is really what accelerated my progress the most. For personal finance, that commitment to it is much the same. Commit to paying off your high interest debts, either the highest loan balances or the highest interest, one at a time. Put as much towards them as you can to get rid of that debt. Commit to building up your emergency fund and make sure that you don't touch it for any other reason other than a serious emergency. Not to buy your PS5, not to put a down payment on a new car, emergencies only. Next, create a budget and stick to that budget. Know where every single dollar goes and commit to saving for retirement early, often, and consistently. It might seem like small steps now, but it makes huge differences and pays huge dividends down the road. Step 4 is to take time off or take a break when emotionally or mentally drained. This can often happen when you follow financial news too closely, read too many articles, look at the stock tickers too much, and overall just being too hands-on with your investments. One thing that I found with my wheelies about a month in is suddenly I stopped progressing and I actually started regressing and I got a lot worse. There was a period for about a few days where I was just getting worse. I couldn't do the long wheelies that I was doing prior to that, and I was getting extremely frustrated, feeling like I had taken steps back all the way to the beginning again. At that point, I took about 5 days off and didn't practice wheelies at all, didn't even ride my bike. And I was surprised to find out that when I came back to it, I was actually better than when I had left off before. I had improved with some time off and just letting my brain and my body rest. Oftentimes with investing, this is a good way to approach it. If you set your plan and you're consistent with it, it's good to not touch your investments, not move money around, and not try to day trade at all. In fact, if your plan is solid and you consistently stick to it, it's better to not even pay attention to it. And you'll find out that years down the road that you have a huge sum of money saved away now. Which is the whole idea behind dollar cost averaging. You buy when it's high, you buy when it's low. Whatever happens, you just consistently buy and stick to the plan of consistently saving, no matter what happens and what people say around you. Step 5 is not comparing to others. There were periods of time when I was practicing the wheelie and I would go online and see how long it actually took people to learn. And I would see these videos, I would read these comments from people that said, oh, I learned it in a couple hours or maybe a week or two. I caught myself sometimes feeling frustrated that I wasn't learning it as quickly as I saw somebody else doing. And feeling that way and thinking that way is just not helpful at all. The important thing that I realized is not to pay attention to what other people are doing, how other people are progressing, and only pay attention to yourself and your own progress moving forward. Everybody learns at a different rate, and everybody's definition of what they consider mastering the skill is also different. So it makes no sense to compare yourself to somebody else. What the most important thing is that you are making progress for yourself. And with personal finance, it's much the same way. It's easy to look at somebody else, this person achieved this at 25, this person achieved this and saved this amount at 30. But what other people are doing should have no bearing and should not affect what you are doing. Stick to your plan and make sure that you are progressing and be content with the progress and the pace that you've set for yourself. Lastly, step 6 is consistency and time. Starting early, sticking with your plan, and being consistent with it across a long period of time is the key to success. In the beginning, it might look like nothing, but like everything else, given enough time, big results start from small changes we make now. And it's never too late to make a positive change, no matter how small. Like a lot of these earlier clips show, I wasn't wearing a helmet in the beginning like I should have been, but I made that positive change and I'm wearing one now, so it's never too late to start. So do it while you can.
Yeah.